do, and what's the next step, and what's the best decision, and what opportunities are we going to have, and that's kind of what you think about every second. Driving somewhere, or just sitting around, or when you're working out or whatever, watching tape. That's what we do. So that's what we've been doing. That's what I've been doing, and I'm excited about it. But first, just want to express my appreciation for you guys, the media. I appreciate what you did all year. It's been a tough 2 years. It's been a tough 2 years for everything. Like for every meeting we've had, it's been a tough 2 years. Probably, obviously in the whole world, but not to minimize your jobs. I mean, it's a challenge. The Zoom stuff, not as much access, players, coaches, games, all those kind of things, and you guys have handled it well. And just appreciate you sticking in there and hanging in there with us, and when it's challenging and when it's tough, and doing the best job you can. So you guys have been great. You've been fair. You've been tough, and just been fun. It's been good every single day. Try to appreciate you every day. When you come to the press conferences, and I really mean that every single day when I say thanks for being there, because appreciate you being there. Appreciate you being here today. So it means a lot. And then our fans. I mean, it's been a crazy 2 years with fans, but man, our fans showed up this year for us, and not every team in the league has a home field advantage. Even in the playoffs, you see that sometimes. It's pretty awesome to get in our stadium and see our fans and how excited they are to be there, and be a part of it, and how much they care. Run into people around town. Wife and I took a trip for 5 days. It ended up being a working vacation the past 5 days. Got back last night. But run into Ravens fans there. It was Arizona. And, man, they were out there. People come up, and I'm a Ravens fan, and, great things to say and nice things to say and questions to ask. And, I tell you, I know we don't have the biggest fan base. We got a pretty big fan base. But we have, I would say, the most passionate fan base. We got a bunch of fans that really care and really live and die for what we're doing. So that is greatly appreciated. Okay, with that, what questions you have?
John, at the end of the season with Lamar, I think initially it didn't seem like it was going to be a major injury, and then he missed the following week. Did something happen? Was there some sort of setback that happened during that time?
Right, great question. There was not a setback. It was a bone bruise. So I think early on, right away, you hope for the best with a bone bruise. Those things are really unpredictable. And there was a thought, and even Lamar, Lamar felt like he was going to be back. First week he thought he had a chance. Second week he assured me. He said, I'll be back. And he worked really hard at getting back. But it just didn't really heal. And it was in a spot where it come to understand from the medical people that there's not a great deal of blood flow down there in the ankle, low ankle, foot area where the bruise was. And it just didn't heal very quickly, and it was painful. And you could see it. He stayed in the boot longer than we thought. He was still limping even at the end of the season. Even in his boot, I saw him in his boot toward the end. So I talked to him Saturday. He said it felt great. He said it was really getting better, and he felt really confident that he was going to be able to get started. He said he's starting back to work the day after the Super Bowl, and that's his time frame to get going after and be healed up by then. So that's where he's at with that, and that's what happened.
I know we'll get a chance to talk to Mike McDonald Wednesday. I know you put out a statement about parting ways with Wink, and I think anyone objectively would acknowledge injuries being a challenge. But when you looked at the defense, what concerns you to feel good about going in a new direction and bringing in a new coach?
Well, I'm excited about an opportunity to go forward. We've got, if you want to just talk about the big picture of the defense, certainly you already mentioned the fact that we're going to be getting guys back. We're going to get 2 first-round pick corners back. So that's a good place to start. And hopefully we'll get a couple guys back, with signings and things like that. We'll have to see how that plays out. I'm looking forward to that. I'm excited to get going on that and talk to guys. And the problem is you have to wait a little bit. You don't get till March to really kind of confirm all that stuff. Then we'll have the draft and all those kind of things. But I feel like we're going to have a talented defense next year. And we've got some places to shore up and fill in like everybody. But we've got some time to do it. I'm excited about the coaching staff going forward. As I said in the statement, I think the statement pretty much said everything I had to say about it. But it's how I feel. There's a lot of success there. We did really well, and we have great coaches. Don's a great coach, is a proven coach, and a great guy. Guy I've known for a long time, and we work really well together. But sometimes it is just time, and I feel like we both felt that way. But in any event, I believe that's the best thing going forward. And I'm excited about Mike McDonald. I'm excited about building that staff right now with Mike and putting the guys together, which we're working on even right now as we speak. and kind of building the defense out again, you know, and it's not going to be dramatically different, I don't think, structurally, because you try to build on where you've been before, you know, and that's the thing I think that we've done here. That's the great thing about continuity and the great thing about success. I mean, there's an amazing tradition of defense here, and it's built on the players that have been here. It's built on the schemes that have been used. It's built on the mindset. It's built on practice. It's built on everything, you know. It's built on the back of a lot of work, you know, and guys who do it kind of the way we want to see it done, and you know that has developed, and it's been, we say the standard is developed and raised by the guys who do it, and those are the guys who've done it going all the way back. So the guys who are here, the coaches here, feel that pressure, you know, to kind of keep building on that. So where does it go? It's not something that you want to start over on. It's something you want to build on. So that's the reason for Mike, and that's the reason we went the way we did. And we're gonna really. I'm excited about where we're going and what we're going to do with that. But we'll talk more about that on Wednesday, I'm sure.
The decision to part ways with Wink, and then you go down to the meetings with Steve. I don't know how much you can tell us about those meetings and how intense they were. But there has been an outcry about Greg Roman and his position with the team. Do you look at his stance differently than Wink's in terms of the substantial injuries? You talked about what the defense faced, but the offense seemed to face a lot more.
Yeah, you know, it's not so much about any specific thing at all. And it's more about, you know, as you look at it, and it's my responsibility to put the coaching staff together and build it the way I want to build it, according to the vision that I have. I mean, you know, you always take into account wise counsel. And I've made it my point, you know, I've made it a business to try to find out and understand what everybody thinks. You know, I even listen to you guys, you know, see what you think sometimes. And but it's important. So, you know, we've got a great thing going here in terms of what you talked about going down there. I mean, you know, Steve and Eric and Ozzie, Dick, but all through the organization too. You know, it's just we have great communication. We've got great trust and a lot of honest dialogue, you know, always. And that's what you got to do. And then for me, in my area of responsibility, it's my job to make the decisions. And that's what I did. And so a lot of factors go into it. A lot of factors go into you know, moving on. A lot of factors go into kind of moving on with the same people. And those are the decisions that have been made, and that's the decisions I made.
There's a lot of moving pieces now. I mean, there's 8 or 9 staff still forming around the league. So is it a lock that Greg will definitely be back? And how do you feel with that? You know, why do you feel he's still the right guy to lead the audience?
Yeah. I mean, nothing's a lock. I mean, nothing's a lock in life, you know, to use that term. But I'm excited about it. I plan on Greg being back. I believe Greg plans on being back. But, you know, it's still early. I mean, we're only 3 weeks past the season. I know things happen fast for sure, just like you said. But that's the plan. And I'm excited about that. I mean, you know, offensively, we've done some pretty darn good things here over the past 3 years offensively, and I think we have a really good vision and understanding of what we want to build offensively. You know, the players we want to build around, and what we need to do it. So, we came up short this year in a lot of ways, and if you look at it, you take a step back, it's kind of interesting what we did. I mean, we gained a lot of yards, but we didn't do a good enough job of turning yards into points. You know, that's really what it boiled down to. And I think I says here, we ranked 6th in offensive yards per game, which we knew that, but 17th in points. Why? Well, our field position wasn't very good. You know, we didn't do a very good job of establishing field position all the time because we gave up some yards on defense. That's kind of part of the deal. We were the 3rd best offense in football in 3 and outs, okay, which is a good thing. But the problem is we didn't sustain enough drives. So we'd get 2 or 3 first downs, then we'd get stopped and be forced to punt, you know. And we'd punt them down in there, the ball get pushed out just a little bit, and we're backed up again. So we had, I'd call, you know, a number of yards. Are they empty yards or yards that didn't translate into points? We didn't do a good enough job in the red zone down the stretch. We had too many turnovers in the red zone. We had a bunch of turnovers in the red zone late. So that cost us points. Field goals are okay, but touchdowns are way better. And we had too many field goals, you know, when you want to get touchdowns. And then the other thing that kind of led to I think the thing about the drives, not having the 3 and outs is good, but scoring drives, we didn't have enough of those because probably we didn't have enough big plays. We led the league, or we were near the top of the league in big plays early, but second half of the season, we didn't have hardly any big plays. And really, you watch all these games now that are being played. It's a challenge to go all the way down the field and make plays, play after play, and put the ball in the end zone, and then get it done in the red zone. So you need some big plays, you need some easy scores, and we just didn't have those. So those are the things you kind of look at and kind of make those decisions. That's offensively the big thing. I think I'll just kind of go through it now since we're talking offense, and you see this when you watch the tape, but our called run game wasn't as good. this year as it's been the last couple of years. Our called run game was the best in history, in 19 and 20, and this year it just wasn't. Okay, why? We didn't have the explosive plays. We didn't have. We were seventh, I think, in the league in yards before contact, and we were toward the bottom in yards after contact. Okay, so the called run game. Now our run game is pretty good statistically. We're in the top 5 in both the categories, but it was mostly scramble yards. So you credit Lamar for that. You credit Tyler for that. Those guys did a good job of that, and we appreciate that. But we've had those in the past. Those are a big part of what we've done too. That's why the offense is set up the way it is. But we also had too many sacks. We had too many hurries, too many sacks, which kind of negated some of our scramble yards. And the last part of the offensive, I think, formula that really hurt us was just too many penalties. A lot of pre-snap penalties that we have got to get cleaned up. Those are penalties that we don't need to have happen. We're not lining up the right way, or you got young guys out there. You try to formation some things up a certain way. We've got to look at all that and do much better in the penalty area, because now you're gaining yards, but you're making up for lost yards and penalty yards. So I think that kind of accounts for the yard discrepancy and the point discrepancy. But I know we can look at that with the coaching staff that we have, build on the players that we have, kind of choose our scheme direction wisely. Let's really take some time, and we've talked a lot about this in terms of we've got all the elements in our offense. I mean, we can name all the elements. Our RPOs this year were excellent. We're in the top couple of teams in the league in RPOs. That's not something we've really done that much in the past. It was more quarterback-driven runs and more play action. Play action game was great early with all the big plays. But what direction do we want to go in terms of the schemed run game, in terms of the RPOs, in terms of ball coming out on time, in rhythm, in terms of movement passes, play action passes off of those runs, no huddle type stuff, and how do we want to order it? Where do we want to put our resources into? And that's what we're going to go to work on the next couple weeks, and you do that based around the players that you have. So, yeah, we know who our quarterback's going to be. We know who certain pieces are going to be. But, where are we going with our running backs? Where are we going with our offensive line in terms of building that? Those are places that everybody knows, Can we add a tight end or not, And do we need to add a receiver or not? Those are the things we'll be looking at.
On the impact of injuries this year, at no point did you ever use that as an excuse, but now, a month now to kind of look back at it, how much did the injuries impact 8 and 9, and how do they impact looking at what happened as you do your further analysis going forward?
Well, you're right. I mean, it's not something you want to go down a road and say, hey, that's the reason. I'm never going to say, it's just not right, because injuries happen to every team. And I think if you look at it, it is a little cyclical. You go back to 2015, we got impacted with injuries really bad. 2016, and we pulled ourselves out of that. And we did really well for a couple of years, and then this year we just got smashed with them, And you can say it's bad luck, you can say it's fluke, and I get that, but I don't feel like we have the luxury to live there. It's not something that we can say that's it. We've got to turn over every stone. We've got to look at every possible avenue to make sure, do the best we can to make sure this doesn't happen again. And that's what we plan on doing. So, I had a meeting 2 weeks ago with our performance people, and we sat in there for 4 hours and went over every aspect of what we're doing and what we can do on the football side to try to improve that, from practice schedules, from training camp schedules, from OTAs, from how we train, from how we condition, even how we do our team, all of our modeling in terms of loads and things like that in our team periods and in our individual periods. I mean, man, we're going to look at everything, and we're going to change a lot. And I've talked to a lot of our players about that, because in some ways you don't change for change's sake, but sometimes you got to make changes in the way you do things. So, in my mind, I wrote this down. I thought it was pretty good, so I'll share it with you. But change is inevitable and growth is required, and that's something that I think it applies to the injury question as much as anything else. We have got to go to work on that thing right there. So I'm already drawing up practice schedules, and we're putting them into models for loads and things like that to do everything we can do to make sure that we come through as strong as we can be, ready to attack the season when the season starts. So we're not going to just take it. We're not going to just take it and say it's okay. It's something that's got to be fixed.
How much did you talk to players about their input as far as?
I talk to players a lot about their input. All the time. I feel like every single day, every single time I have a chance to have a conversation with the guys. Had a conversation with Mark this weekend. Had a conversation with Lamar this weekend. I understand there's a broad range of player feeling about different things. Some guys love what you do. Some guys don't love what you do. We try to make it as individualized as we can. And I think that's between coaches and players to understand what they're looking for. So there's always guys who like certain things. There's guys that don't like certain things. And I think it's incumbent upon us to understand what those things are. Because these guys are pros. You know, you've got guys who train in the off season. Some do better than others. You understand who those guys are. And some are really good at what they do, and they understand themselves really well. And you got to understand those guys have a plan too, and you need to respect that. So, you know, that's something that we try to chase. It's never going to be perfect, Mike. I mean, it's never going to be. You know, you can't have 53 plus. I mean, you're talking about way more than 53 guys now. You know, everybody's saying, oh, everything we do is great, but we try the best we can to get as much consensus as we can. And I'm always asking guys what they think.
How confident, with this year, with Boyle and Stanley, obviously they threaten to be 2-year injuries. How confident Dobbins, Edwards, Peters, those guys are going to be able to come back fully healthy next season?
Well, yeah, I'm hopeful. I mean, it's like I'm not in the rehabs every day, so I'm like you guys. I'm hopeful. I'm down there encouraging them. I'm talking to them, and so far so good. But that was a big surprise. I mean, you get into training camp and you think you're going to have Ronnie, and next thing you know, he's out for a whole nother season. You think Nick's going to be back to start the season, and he's not back till the end, and he was never full speed. But I'm confident and excited about the fact that those two guys should be back full speed next year, and those are two great players. So put those guys on top of the running backs that you're talking about. I'm prayerful, I'm hopeful, and I do believe that as an organization, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that our rehab operation is cutting edge and is at the highest level. And that's another piece of that thing. Talk about turning over every stone. That's another stone that's being turned over. And that's more on the other side, with the other side of the building. But that's a big part of it also.
Related to that, we haven't got a chance to talk about Tyus Bowser. Can you confirm that he tears Achilles, and do you have any sense of whether he'll be back by early season, mid-season?
Yeah, he did tear his Achilles. He had surgery. By all accounts, it went great. They always say that. Have you ever had a surgery that you gave out, and you woke up and the guy goes, didn't go well? I guess if you woke up, it went well, right? So it went well, but I do think it went well, and I do know Tyus. Tyus is gonna work. So I'm pretty excited. I think Tyus will be back for the start of the season. I think he'll be back for training camp. That's my prediction. That's my timeline. So I'm gonna stick with that.
Just piggybacking off of that, was there any other guy that you know of that is facing off-season surgery?
I don't think so. I had a list here, but I didn't bring it down here with me. I don't think there's any surgeries. We already had one. There was another one that was after the season. Can you guys help me with it?
Derek Wolf.
Derek Wolf is the other one. Thank you. So Wolfie had a hip labrum surgery. He got his labrum repaired in his hip, and so we'll see how that goes. And that's another one that's recoverable from.
John, reports that you're about to sign a new 4-year extension, and obviously he has quite a vote of confidence from Steve Bisciotti, obviously. But it's, it's a results-oriented business, and this year, was he understanding, like, all right, I know the roster you're dealing with, and you guys, competed all the way through. Was that his kind of message to you at this point? And obviously, it's a vote of confidence that he's your guy.
Yeah, that's. I really haven't thought much about that. It's not like it's been. He and I had a big conversation about that. In all honesty, it's been more about what we need to do to get better, and that's really what the focus is right now. So I'm never worried about it. I do think we have a great thing going in terms of, I appreciate and I'm grateful for the people in this building, and that starts with the boss. Steve Bisciotti is the boss, and he is a great boss, and he's insightful. He'll tell you what he thinks. He'll respect your opinion. He'll challenge you. He'll encourage you. All those things. He's just really good, and so you appreciate that. And I'm thrilled to be here. I love being here. I love being a part of this, mainly because of him and Eric and Ozzie and all the people here. But, I just love the coach, and that's what I'm thinking about. So, if the Ravens want me still, then I want to be here, and we'll do the best we can as long as we can.
John, as you went back and assessed Lamar's play overall this year, did you see anything that changed your view of what it would take to build a championship-level offense around him? Or in broad strokes, is it the same idea that you came into this year with?
Broad stroke, that's a good word. I like that. In broad stroke, it's the same idea for sure. And then you got to dive down into the small brush strokes, and try to keep improving all those things. So Lamar's really determined. You know, the conversations that I've had with him, he's really, really determined. And he really, I mean, I can't even emphasize enough how determined he is to improve and to get our offense where it needs to be. So, you know, I just, as a coaching staff, as a scouting staff, we want to do our part. You know, then we got to trust and rely on Lamar and all the players. I mean, all the players to do their part. You know, to go to work and he's got, like I said, he's got a plan to do that, just like all the guys do, and go to work and come back here in April better than you were when you left. So, all the things that happened this year that, you know, you look at the numbers and stuff like that were a step back in terms of our offense, and you were talking about Lamar. Those are all things that you can look at and you can understand why. But at the same time, that doesn't mean there's no excuse, you know, and that's how he looks at it. So let's go to work and let's get better at the things we need to get better at, and let's let that talent shine.
Coach, you talked about the fight the team showed towards the end of the season, despite the injuries and the COVID situation. Was there at any point during that stretch, I know you talk about faith a lot, was there any point that something happened to the roster to where it kind of took a shot at the faith that you had going down the stretch, where you just like, this may be the straw that breaks the camel's back?
Could you repeat the last part of that again?
Basically, was there anything that happened to the roster down the stretch that you thought this may be it, this may be too big to recover from?
No, I never had that thought. Just never had that thought. You know, I felt like every single one of those games, you know, we could win and we will win. You know, felt like we put good plans together, you know, in all those games, and I felt like our players worked really hard. I mean, the guys who were playing, they went out there and they worked every practice and they fought in every single game. You know, what didn't happen was the plays weren't really made that needed to be made down the stretch. You know, defensively, we didn't get off the field enough in the fourth quarter. I mean, that was pretty much a number of times throughout the season, but especially down the stretch. You know, we just weren't able to get a stop. How do you get a stop? You make a play. You know, the play gets made. You watch these games, someone comes up with a play. It's defense flying around, being in a good spot, which our guys did all that. But for whatever reason, we just didn't come up with a play that we needed to get a win down the stretch. And all we really needed was one, I guess two, you know, down the stretch, and that would have got it done for us. So that's the biggest disappointment. I feel like, you know, you want to find a way to help your guys, put them in position to make a play, you know, to win the game. And that's a big disappointment that we weren't able to do that. But I've got no issue with the effort, the attitude, the fight, as you put it, the competitiveness, the try hard, you know, all those things. And a lot of those young guys who play, we played like, I don't know, 70-some guys this year. I think we started almost 50 players this year at different times. So that's kind of a positive going forward. I mean, those guys, now let's see how they grow. All right, so that's all good. Now, with that experience and what you've learned, where do you go from now until then when we start practicing again? You know, I'm interested in what they're going to do before we come back. I want to know what they're going to do with their time before we come back and get together, and how much better they are between now and then.
John, go back to Lamar in the passing game. We asked you about this in season, but now that you've had a chance to take a step back, the amount of blitzing that kind of started with the Miami game and continued until we got
The amount of what, I'm sorry?
The amount of blitzing, you know, with the Miami game, and I guess with Lamar, especially in the past, I mean, he handled the blitz so well.
Blitzing.
Yes.
That mask is hurting me.
I know, sorry. But I guess the thought is, you know, with a step back and looking at it in a big picture sense, why was that such a struggle for him in the passing game? Was there something, you know, something missing from a schematic standpoint that you guys just couldn't adjust to that?
Well, I mean, I think we did adjust to it. You know, we made a number of plays after the Miami game. The Cincinnati game, the first Cincinnati game and the Miami game were the two games that it got us. And it really hurt us. And, you know, we thought we had a plan. We thought we were in good shape with some of our drop back passing stuff. And we just didn't hit the plays, you know. And you can look at each one of them. Sometimes a wrong route was run. Sometimes, you know, a guy wasn't held off long enough on the protection. Sometimes a guy got knocked off his route. You know, there's always a little thing. But that in the end, that's all execution. That's all being good at it. And we just weren't good at handling it. So what we did after the Miami game is we went to work on other alternative answers. And we had a number of other answers. We had runs. We had you know, check with me's to screens. We had shot plays. We had pick plays. We had really kind of, I would say, every answer that there is in football we had, and we practiced down the stretch. We dedicated probably 10%, probably between 5 and 10% of our practice time on offense to zero blitz for the whole half of the season after the Miami game. And And sometimes the stuff worked and sometimes it didn't. Then sometimes you get blitz sometimes you looks like blitz and you make a blitz check, then all of a sudden they're running out of it, like our defense does. And now we're throwing a blitz check into a zone coverage. So those are all things that we've got to get better at, recognizing those things, also beating those things with base plays too, and just having those answers. So to me, it's just us getting good at attacking it. And it's, it's been a priority, but it's got to show up on the field in execution for sure.
Coach, going back to the 2-point conversion decisions, now that you've had a chance to look back on them, though,
Yeah.
the impact they had on the season, would you say, did it cost the team a chance possibly to make it to the postseason? And the reaction inside the locker room, because we can't pull every player inside the locker room like we used to be able to.
Well, I mean, the players, I think you know what the players felt about it, So I'm probably the guy that feels the worst about it. I think the players, like I said, I was talking to Mark, and I was talking to Lamar, and it came up, and they're basically saying, they're basically telling me what I should have done what I did, but would we have won those games in overtime? Nobody knows, So we had probably a 50-50 shot there, and would we have had a 50-50 shot in overtime against some of those quarterbacks we were playing? I don't know. But that's the choice that you made. Having made them now, not knowing what happened, I think I would have done them again after thinking about it. After knowing what happened, heck no, I'm going to overtime, That's easy, and I thought about it right away. As soon as we didn't convert, I'm like, damn, I should have kicked it. That's the first thing I thought, and because that's really what it boils down to. It's not, you can't say it was the right decision when it didn't work. Just like you can't say it was a wrong decision if it did work. I mean, the bottom line is you want it to work. That's why you do it. So, we'll continue to be aggressive, but we're never going to be, irresponsibly aggressive. You're going to try to be aggressive in ways. I tell our analytics guys this all the time. Whether you go for it on 4th down, or whether you go for it in 2, or whatever it is you do, it's not a matter of being, a plus 4% chance of winning the game. It's not a matter of 65% chance as opposed to a 35% chance. All those numbers they give you, it's 100% you get it or 100% you don't get it. It's a win or it's a loss. And that's why it's never going to be about analytics. It's going to be about making a decision in the heat of battle. And I believed in those two situations that we were going to convert those plays.
If I can ask,
sure.
Follow up, the decision to take a survey and not being more decisive, is that something maybe you wouldn't do in the future?
Oh, no, I'm always taking surveys. I mean, I knew what I was going to do. I already knew I was going to go for it, but some of that's, you build a little consensus around what you're doing. You get some belief. I mean, if I'd had all the guys, if I'd have said something, and I'd gotten this look, if I'd have gotten that look, I might have rethought it, But you do want to get a little buy-in, a little belief, let's do it. Let's get fired up. Let's go make this happen. I think that's part of the leadership piece.
Coach, there's a number of unrestricted free agents on defensive line to secondary with Bozeman. Does that pose a challenge, how you're going to prepare the offseason as far as personnel, what you're going to have back?
Big challenge. It's not something that gets answered until really they go to the market. At this point in time, guys go to the market. That's what happens. So we're going to just have to see how that plays out. Those are the guys you're talking about are good players. I'd love to have those guys back. We've got a number of guys. I always want them all back. That's the problem. I want them all back, but you got to prioritize, and it's more than one factor. It's more than the roster is like, as a coach, you look at the roster, okay? But from a bigger picture standpoint, you got to understand the cap ramifications of all those guys, the contract issues. Can you get somebody else in free agency? Is there going to be a cap casualty? Is this a good area in the draft? Can we get a place? Who are we going to get in the draft? At what spot? So those are the things that you really spend a lot of time looking at in terms of prioritizing, how you spend that money. And that's something that Eric and Ozzie and Nick and the crew, Pat, they all do that. So we'll see how it plays out.
Along those lines, along the offensive line, you asked about Bozeman a little bit, but how do you assess the need of the offensive line when you're hoping to get Ryan Stanley back to full strength? How do you kind of look at that, knowing that the hope and the expectation is to get Stanley back to full strength, and how that affects the rest of the team?
Yeah, I think it's critically important. I mean, to me, the offensive line is really, really important. It's the basis. Believe that in 2008. Believe that when my dad told me that probably in about 1972. You win and lose in the trenches, and that's where it starts. Yeah, you got to have playmakers. The quarterbacks are kind of important. You see that this weekend. But no skill player can do anything without the lines in front of them doing that work. So. to me, in our offense especially, it's just critically important that we have a really good offensive line. So, yes, Ronnie's a big part of that. Kevin Zeitler, gosh, did he do a good job. What a great signing for us, you know. And then got some young guys at guard, you know, coming along. Ben Cleveland played really well the last game. That was good to see. Ben Powers played well, you know, until he got hurt at the end. And then Tyree, you know, we just got to keep Tyree healthy. You know, every time he starts to gain momentum, something happens, you know. Very talented guy, but he needs time on task. And if he does, what's going to happen with him? So just kind of going through that. What's going to happen with Alejandro? You know, where's he at? You know, what's his feeling right now? He played probably his 2 best games the last 2 games.
Many weeks we've asked you about tackling, the lack of tackling. Looking back at it now, what was the contributing factors for those? Was it coaching up these guys, or was it a lack of fundamentals and things of that nature?
Well, I mean, so many things go into it. You know, we really just had issues early in the season, especially. It got better toward the end, and some young guys I think did a better job with their angles. You know, and just understanding the basic. It starts with understanding the basic angles. It starts for a run play when the ball's handed off, and first of all, I got to understand my gap control up front. I got to understand my edge control. You know, I got to control an edge on the front side and the back side. I've got to understand a cutback play. I've got to understand a reverse or an end around. I've got to understand what boots are all about. Those are all backside edge type of plays. And then, you know, from a linebacker standpoint, you've got to understand it's not just about the scheme. It's about your relationship to that running back. So because the scheme's telling me wide zone doesn't mean I'm running out there. The back might be running down here and cutting it back. And we started to learn those things. Or in the passing game. You know, if I'm out here in space, I've got to understand, is it an inside-out angle? Is it an outside-in angle? You know, I've got to maintain that relationship to a near hip or to a near shoulder. But not do it in a way where I'm breaking down and giving the guy 5 yards to make me miss. Do it in an aggressive way where I drop my rate and I run through and I make the tackle aggressively on time. You know, are my eyes in the right place? If I'm playing zone coverage, am I staring at a receiver and I don't see the ball thrown over here? Am I staring at the quarterback and I don't understand there are routes around me? Or am I starting to get a comprehensive understanding, you know, of how to relate to passes and be in the right spot to go make a tackle? Screens, you know, the Colts hit us with a screen that just was a killer. It was a 70-yard screen that went for a touchdown to a really good running back. But we didn't have a topper on that thing. We didn't have anybody pointing that screen. So if you don't have somebody pointing the screen, you can get kicked out, you get kicked in, and there's a crease. So there's a lot that goes to it, but it's really not that complicated. And having our guys understand that and doing it day in and day out is what coaching is. So the fact that we weren't good at it, that's our responsibility. That's how I look at it. It starts with me as a coach. It's my job to make sure that we're good at the fundamentals. And we've got to set up practice that way and make sure our guys understand the basics. And if we do that, we're around the ball in the right spot and we make the tackles we're supposed to make.
John, as you watch the young quarterbacks in the AFC, in the playoffs in particular, and their ability to extend plays, the arm talent, all that, is there anything philosophically you're looking at in building that team to try and stop those guys? You have to get through those guys. What are your thoughts watching them and the way that they've evolved, and just the level of play there is astounding?
Well, it is. I mean, it is. And that's it. I mean, especially in the AFC. You know, the AFC is the quarterback conference right now, right? And you saw it the last 2 weeks. So that's what we've been dealing with, you know. And we did a number of things schematically. We had some 2-level rushes, you know, some 4-man 2-level rushes where we call it, it's a little bit of a spy, but it's more of a second-level rush guy that kind of is going to react to the quarterback and try to keep the quarterback from splitting a 4-man rush. I saw a lot of 4-man rushes get split for big yards, really changed games throughout the playoffs here so far. So that's big. We did a lot of things where we were taking away receivers, taking away initial reads, and then adding a guy into the rush late, a 4th rusher or a 5th rusher late. Those things helped us down the stretch. So there's things you can do, but in the end, it really comes down to some athletic, fast guys on the field that can get to the quarterback, or that on the second level can break and go tackle the quarterback once he starts to go, can chase a guy down, can retrace. You know, I look at Pittsburgh. One of the good things they do is retrace rushes, you know, between Watt and Hayward. They do a great job of retracing. I think that's something that they've made a point of with Lamar. You know, that's something that we look at. We've got to get better at that too. So there's all those little elements go into it, but I think it's a way bigger part of the game than it used to be, as you're saying.
The way that you have constructed the roster and your team over the last few years has focused on a strong rushing attack you set up your team. How concerned are you that you might be going against the grain a bit when the league as a whole seems to be very pass-centric and you see these 2 high-flying offenses like the Rams and the Bengals in the Super Bowl? And how have you made adjustments to focus more on the pass as you progress through the last couple of years of building the team?
Yeah, I mean, Well, I think we've worked hard at that. You know, and our pass offense statistically was a lot better this year than it was the year before. But you've got to build your offense around the players that you have. I mean, these teams are running the ball really well too. So just to say that they're passing teams is really not true. All through the playoffs, all those teams ran the ball well. A lot of it's quarterback runs, which is a big dynamic for us. You know, a lot of our run offense this year was quarterback runs and was the last 2 years. But the schemed up run game, that's probably something that we have been, you know, the top team at. That's something that we made a big point of the last couple of years, and it's something that really fell off this year. So it's an important element for us. How big of a piece is it going forward? That's what we got to decide. You know, it's going to be a big piece, but is it going to be as big as a piece it was in 19, say? You know, as Lamar progresses as a quarterback? No, I don't think it will be. You know, it'll be a piece, and people are going to have to contend with it and deal with it, but it won't be as big as it was that year. So that's hopefully an evolution that we make, you know, as our players grow.
Can you share with us, how was that conversation with your brother Jim when you called him to get Mike back to us, and what was his thoughts towards him? And after he had a tremendous year calling plays in Michigan.
Yeah, well, he said, sure, no problem, you know. He was great about it, but he was great about it, actually. And it was a good experience for Mike, I think. You know, that's something we'll talk more about Wednesday, I'm sure, when Mike gets up here. But it was a good experience. It just kind of the way it worked out. And now Jim's looking for a defensive coordinator, and I'm sure he'll find a great one.
John, in all the years you've been coaching, in those 2-point conversions, have you ever had players say, no, coach, don't do that?
No, I never have. Never have. It's a great point. You know, guys want to be aggressive, and I think your point, Mike, is really, if I'm understanding it right, is a great point. I mean, that's the coach's responsibility to temper that. And there's been lots of times where guys want to go for 2 where I'm not going for 2. You know, and I'm just looking at guys like, you know. And there's times when Tucker wants to kick a 58, 62-yard field goal in the middle of the game where I'm laughing at him. Come on, man. You know, also, but if you got the right kind of players, you're right, Mike. You want those guys to want to have the ball in their hand and make plays. So that's why I say if it doesn't work as a coach, I feel like it wasn't the right call.
Hey, John, speaking of the 2-point plays overtime, people were howling after the Chiefs-Bills game. Are you going to try that spot and choose method again? And do you still think overtime is broken?
You know, it's funny. They're going to do spot and choose in the Pro Bowl, I guess, for the opening kickoff. They're only going to have one kickoff. They're going to do spot and choose. Nobody, they didn't. I had to get that through the back door. Someone kind of leaked that to me out of the league office, which I appreciated. So I don't know if they really care what I think, but the idea is a great idea, and we'll see. You know.
We have time for 2 more guys. We'll do Viv and then Jonas.
John, as you assess your own team to build the best you can, you also look at your competition. And you face Cincinnati twice a year. You faced them twice this year. You've seen what they've done in the playoffs. As you construct your team, what do you think of them and what they pose going forward as they're building with a young quarterback?
It's a great point. You have to you take into account your division first. And for us, that's been, over the years, Pittsburgh. And then Cincinnati over the years has been something we've had to contend with if you look back. And then Cleveland now, you know, the last 2 years, 3 years has kind of come on. So those are the 3 teams that you look at first and you say, we have to build a team that can contend with and beat those teams. So Cincinnati's a champ. You know, they're the defending AFC North champ next year coming in. They might be world champions, and they deserve every accolade they get, and they're well built. I mean, they've got a really good team. They're talented. They've got a great quarterback, obviously. They've got great receivers. The defense, I mean, look, you know, I knew the defense was good from playing them. We knew it. That's a heck of a defense. And Coach Anarumo's done a great job the way he's built that thing. Very confident. They got guys who can cover. They got a front that can stop the run. They got pass rushers. They got tackling inside linebackers. So that right now, that's the standard. But it's not just them. It's Pittsburgh. You know, Pittsburgh's still going to be Pittsburgh. You can bet on that. You know, and the Browns are a very talented team. You know, and they won a bunch of games this year. And you play them, you line up against them, you're standing up there, you're watching them, and you're like, ooh, you know, that's a talented football team out there, a dangerous football team. So I think our division is really good, and we're going to have to measure up. You know, we're going to have to do it, scheme-wise, talent-wise, how we organize practices, how we lift weights, everything. You know, we got to bring it this year for sure.
John, I think one of the criticisms of passing offense is you'd see some plays where 2 guys would end up 5 yards of one another, which obviously makes it a lot easier to defend. I guess what was it kind of a symptom of that, or what led to that, and what change do you see kind of going forward?
Well, that's a good point. Like, and you watch it, you know, you watch and you say, what's the reason for that? And there were times when we had guys doing the wrong thing, for sure. I mean, there's no doubt about it. There were a couple fourth down plays this year, critical fourth down conversions that didn't happen, and we had a receiver run the wrong route, and that's just not okay, you know. And internally, we deal with that, you know, and we deal with it, and it's something that has to improve, because those are critical situations in the game. Other times, it's a little bit of a function of the way our offense operates, because we have some creativity and some latitude in our pass game. You've got Mark Andrews out there, you got Marquise Brown, and you got Lamar Jackson and Tyler Huntley. They're more creative players. You know, it's not always a rhythm timing type of a passing attack that you look at and you go, oh, it makes sense, boom. That's where the ball's out and the ball's supposed to go. You watch the same thing with the Chiefs, I think. You'll see guys in the same area a lot of times, because plays start to extend and guys end up in the same spot. Or there are times where we give our guys latitude to adjust a route. So we might be running a seam route. Sometimes it's a seam route where we're running for speed. We're going to put pressure on the two safeties, and it's a speed seam route. But there are other times we have choices built into those seam routes where, you know, they give us over-the-top coverage, and there's a hole in there. We'll let Mark or Marquise or one of the other guys sit down into a hole, and Lamar likes that. So when you do that, when you build a little more latitude in there, there's going to be times where it doesn't look quite as it does on paper as you want it to. And sometimes that's good, and sometimes it's not good. But we do try to define when we're allowed to do that and when we're not. And I think that the better we get an understanding between the quarterback and the receiver, when we're you know, running the line, and when we've got some creativity built in, make sure we understand that and rep that a lot, the better we're going to be.
All right, thanks, Coach.
Okay, thanks.
See you guys on
Thanks,
Wednesday.
everybody.